After our Stone Johnny video, we had a fantastic question posted about how to get started with snow wheeling. Now, I know for a lot of you out there, it is a totally new endeavor, and it can be a little intimidating because there's a lot to go into getting prepared for it. Hopefully, we can take some of the mystery out of that for you. So the first thing I always recommend to people is make sure you bring a friend with you. It's imperative that you have someone else there, not only to maybe give you a tug and give you a pull to get out of things, but to also make things more calming in that if one vehicle gets stuck, you always have a way of getting out. One of the best things to do is to join a group like Overland Bound. They go out on regular trips. You can choose and select what kind of difficulty you want to go with, and you can always find someone that you really pair with and you really want to share the same kind of adventures with. Beyond that, one of the other things you're going to want to do is you're going to want a way of navigating. The best software that I've found by far has been OnX. Now, paper maps are indispensable. You always want to be able to carry paper maps. But in just routing and navigation, OnX makes it really easy for you. Don't forget, you can always use Trail Guide 30 for 30% off of your first subscription to OnX. This is a game changer when it comes to being able to lay out things in a simplistic way. Oftentimes, I end up being the driver and the navigator, and this makes it possible. One of the things we always take is a saw. Now, on occasion, you're going to come across downfall in the woods and that you just need to cut it to get it out of the way. Sometimes it's going to be stuff from overhead. Sometimes it's going to be stuff right out on the trail. In any case, a hand saw is indispensable. I do cheat sometimes and bring a Sawzall. Sawzall makes it really go fast. But in the event of dead batteries, a good hand saw, you're going to need it. Now, we've talked about airing down quite a bit on our channel, and this is your basic air down tool. Now, you're going to see lots of different variations on this. What's really important to know is basically this is your valve stem. Now, when you go to use an air down tool, what you're trying to accomplish is you're trying to get that valve out of the main body of this, and you're trying to pull it up into here. Now, the purpose in that is so that this can allow the air to come out of your tire much faster. So what you do is you pull out the little shaft that comes out the length, you screw it on to the valve stem like so. You push this back on until you feel it engage. Now when it engages, you're actually unscrewing that little valve out of the middle of it. So you want to get it all the way unscrewed, and then you're going to pull this out. This is what controls your airflow. So this is in a closed position, so it's not letting air out. This will let the air out. Sometimes the valve doesn't really want to move out of there very well, and so sometimes you have to unscrew this just a little bit, and you'll hear it pop, and it'll pop that valve up into the main body to let the air out. Now, when you want to do the reverse of this, or when you're stopping airing down, you close off the valve, you push in the valve into the main body again, screw it all the way in. Now, it's really important that you turn it in until it's firm. You're going against two brass surfaces here. So firm, not ridiculously tight. Firm, and then pull straight back. Don't unscrew it all. And then you unscrew the main body. And you see then the valve is back inside the main valve stem. Now, the main purpose of deflating, just in this little bit that we've done here, our footprint down here went from about a 6 to 7 inch footprint to about a 12-inch footprint. That just means a lot more traction is down on the snow. It's distributing the weight over a much larger area. You're going to have a lot more traction. Now, the downside of all this is that it's going to generate a lot more heat, and you don't want to drive with it on the highway like this. I really wouldn't go over speeds of, if I'm at 20 pounds, I wouldn't do over 35 miles an hour. If I was, say, under 10 pounds, I wouldn't do over 20 miles an hour. But that's just me personally. Be sure and consult with the manufacturer as far as what's acceptable. Beyond the air down kit, you're going to need a way to put air back in the tires. Now, there's lots of onboard air systems that can get very expensive. I actually like this one. This one's called the Viair 400P, and I've had this for years. Now, It's a pretty basic unit. You put it out on the ground, you hook it to the battery terminals. The important thing here, the 400P is a full duty cycle compressor, so you don't have to stop and let it cool down. A lot of these really small compressors that you're going to get at Walmart and other places just aren't up to it. They can inflate or maybe bring up the pressure in a tire some, but they're just not up to the task of 4 big off-road tires. I had an issue where the end chuck wouldn't fit down around the new wheels on the Bronco, so I had to get that replaced before I actually was able to use it on the trail. A big part of coming out here in the woods is making sure that you have good communications. Now, a cell phone will do you fine if you're in close by, but that's just not going to work in a lot of situations. So I actually recommend going with a 2-meter, 70-centimeter ham radio. Now, a ham radio, this is an example here. This is just an inexpensive Baofeng. These run, about $25 to $35, right in that area. You've seen me use my ham radio that's in my vehicle. My vehicle ham radio is much more expensive, but it has a much greater range as well. Now, ham radio, it's tough because you need to get a license for it. Now, typically you take a class or something like that. It's not required, but you do have to pass a test. I'll tell you probably won't pass the test unless you actually take some kind of class or read a book or something on it. The thing I like about ham radio is there's so many operators. It's very open as far as being able to reach people, and you have great distance communications with it. So I'm an advocate for that. Now, your other options when it comes to radio is you can get something like this. This is a GMRS radio. GMRS is maybe not as exclusive as ham. And the reason why is you can get a license. The licenses are like $35. You don't have to take any big tests or anything like that, and the license will actually cover your family. Now, GMRS typically runs like 5 watts for most of their channels. It will go up to 50 watts in some of the higher channels, and you need to know what you're doing with that because you can get in trouble if you're not using it correctly. The biggest problem with the GMRS is it's not a real flexible mode of communication. It works for a lot of purposes. Your other option is family radio service, which is a radio kind of like this one. Now, family radio service, you don't need to do anything. You just buy it. It's effectively a walkie-talkie. You need to follow the rules for family radio service. Unfortunately, the biggest problem with these is they're only 2 watts. They're intentionally limited to 2 watts. So those are kind of your best options when it comes to having good communication. And if you're in a group, you need to all kind of decide what you're going to work with. When it comes to your tire choices, you have a lot to pick from. So when you look at a tire and you want to go snow wheeling with it, or off-roading for that matter, it depends on really where you're going to be and when. Now, when it comes to snow wheeling, I prefer a good all-terrain tire. The biggest thing, especially when you're airing down, is to get a tire that is going to be very flexible. You don't want a big, thick, heavy, multiple ply tire. You want a fairly thin, light tire. But you want to have these bead lugs so that it can flex a lot as it flattens out at the bottom of your tire. I wouldn't recommend getting mud terrain tires. Mud terrain tires are meant to take in material and to fling it directly out. When you're doing snow wheeling, you're doing much more of the snow gripping to the tire because the snow sticks to snow better than anything else. So you want something that's not going to dig into holes and that kind of thing. You want something that's going to more or less float on top of the snow. Now, we should talk about locking differentials, or differentials for that matter of any kind. The purpose of a differential is so that when you go around a corner, you can have one tire move faster than the other tire. Now, when you're off-roading, a lot of times, you're going to end up in a situation where the tire that has the least amount of traction is the one that's going to spin. That's where we come into differential locking. Your typical limited slips that have been around for a long time use friction packs that are packed in together, and when you get one tire slipping versus the other, those packs are going to generate heat. They're going to lock up, basically, allow a little bit of slippage. The biggest problem with those is it still is allowing slippage before the other side locks in. The problem with that is if you get one tire that starts slipping, you've already lost momentum. you're more than likely going to transfer the torque to the other wheel, and it's going to dig in as well. So the additional problem with those is that the friction packs wear out. I haven't seen any that last more than about 60,000 miles, and they wear out. So I don't actually recommend those. Your other options are things like torsion differentials. Torsion differentials work on the principle of a worm gear. Now, a worm gear can drive but not be driven, or it's the other way around. So what happens is you get one wheel that slips some, and the worm gear will engage, and it will lock the other side. Now, if you're doing mud bogging, even dry off-roading, that's not a bad thing at all. When you're out in the snow, the problem is it's going to allow a wheel to slip and dig, transfer, and allow that one to dig as well. The other issue with them is when you're coasting downhill, it's more likely to lock up. Now, when you get the two sides locking up, it's going to have much more chance of a lateral transfer. In other words, the vehicle's more likely to slide from side to side on you. And when I go off-roading in the snow, I usually don't use my lockers until I get in a situation where I need. It allows it so that you keep on track. You don't move side to side. So if you're going down a really icy road and you have differentials that are locked up, you're way more likely to move side to side and have that rear end start trying to come around to the front. And that's a big problem. I really do like the modern electronic lockers. They allow it so that you can turn them on, turn them off, use them exactly when you need them, and turn them off when you don't. It allows it to be an absolute locked right now. It's not going to slip, and it's not as likely to dig. The other thing it does is it makes it so that you're less likely to break things because you're not engaged when you don't need them. So if you're doing, let's say you're on Elephant Hill on a really tight turn on flat, hard rock, when you're unlocked, you're good to go. You're not going to break anything. If you have lockers going, you're dragging tires, you're making problems, you're actually potentially going to break things or cause more issues. Now, one of the things you're always going to see me bring is a tire repair kit. Now, I always bring a spare, and I think that everyone should, because it's one of those things that if you have to get out of somewhere quickly, that's the way to go. But in the case where you can fix it on the trail, definitely do it. Sometimes you're just helping out someone else that has a function. So learn how to use it. A basic kit like this costs, $30 to $50, something like that. And it can be a real lifesaver. I've been in some situations where it was a great thing to have on board, and that's why I always carry it. Most guys that go four-wheel driving, they'll have one of these shovels. Now, this is a Gerber one. It's actually quite well made. I've had it for years. Just a little foldable shovel. Now, this, whether it's good weather, bad weather, snow, you name it, this always goes in the vehicle. It's compact, it's out of the way, fairly inexpensive. But I'll tell you, when I go snow wheeling, there is no substitute for a full-size shovel. Everybody's got one. This is my good old trusty, rusty shovel. And I never regret bringing it. The reason why? I hate getting down into the snow and shoveling out. And if I bring this along, inevitably, someone ends up borrowing it from me because they get tired of getting on the ground and shoveling out as well. This just makes it so much easier, and you can make room for it. I get it. In the summertime, I don't bring it. But snow wheeling, do yourself a favor, bring a full-size shovel. Now, I've had this strap for years. It's been of good use to me. I want you to know that any strap you buy is going to be disposable. At some point, it's going to be worn thin. This one's already showing some signs of wear, and they get worn out. Now, a strap only has some limited uses. One, if I'm going to tow somebody out, I like to use a strap because it's a nice solid connection, and it's meant for that kind of duty. I never, ever, ever give inertia pulls or anything like that with the strap. You can break things. You can send projectiles flying. It's generally just not a good idea. Relatively new to four-wheel driving is soft shackles. Now, back in the day, everything was steel cables, hard shackles, that kind of thing. When it comes to soft shackles, what's beautiful about them, they're lightweight, they can go anywhere, and if they do break, they're not going to kill anybody when they come loose. So I always recommend these. Now this, for instance, this is a hard shackle. Now on the front end mount to my vehicle, it's really hard to get a soft shackle through there, and there's a nice position just for a hard shackle to be mounted up there. I always recommend to use not the cast shackles, but the forged shackles. They're definitely stronger, and this is a good solid mounting point. I only have this right next to the vehicle, and I don't ever put them out on a line somewhere where if something goes wrong, you have a big, heavy chunk of metal that's going to go flying. Now, these do have some application in today's use, but make sure you use them properly as well. Hey, Jess, the package I've been waiting on, I see it's been delivered. Can you get it out to me?
Hey, Mike, it's coming your way.
Thanks. Now, when it comes to Kinetic poles, there's only one name in the industry. Yeah, you can get other ropes that say that they're Kinetic, but there's really only one brand that you need. And this isn't just me speaking. There's a lot of people out there that only use this. Now, this is a 7/8 inch Python rope from Yankum Ropes. It's a 30-foot long, and you know, I've got friends that have these, and they all get them in red, which is kind of Yankum's color. This is really the only rope to get when it comes to Kinetic ropes on the market. Now, what's different about a Kinetic rope is you hook it to the vehicle that's stuck, and you do a slight pull, see if you can get them out with that, but you can increase up to a 5-mile-an-hour pull. When you pull, this rope will actually stretch, allowing that energy to be released in a linear manner to be able to pull the vehicle out. The beauty of that is the vehicle that's pulling doesn't get stuck, as well as it allows the right amount of energy to go into the other vehicle to pull it out. This is a 30-foot rope, which is pretty standard. They do have shorter ropes if you're doing like really tight maneuvered trail recoveries, that kind of thing. There are guys that use these tow width as well. I have been told not to overuse this. So if you give like 4 or 5 good pulls with this, let it rest a little bit, because you're going to lose the elasticity in it and things are going to heat up. You're more likely to have damage. If you have to do 4 or 5 pulls, you probably want to reassess the situation anyway. Maybe do a little bit of digging, maybe hook on in a different way as well. But these are awesome. And look at this. I even got a matching blue shackle. Now, if you want a Yankum rope, go to Yankum and use the code VenturePlaylist, and you can get 10% off of your Yankum rope. The other thing we always bring is our go bag. Now, this is our kind of our family emergency kit. This is our first aid kit. It's got emergency equipment in it. It's got flashlights, all kinds of gear, ways to start fire. We're going to actually have a full video just on this, but this always comes with us whenever we go. Also, don't forget, it's not just for kids. Make sure you bring plenty of water, plenty of food. A spare blanket's always a good thing if you get stuck out there for a while. You want to be as prepared as you feel comfortable. Well, thank you all for watching and participating with us. If you have any additional comments, please put it in the comments section. Anything that we've left out or that you would recommend for first timers. Also, you can join the community at Ko-Fi, and we have our Venture Playlist community there that you can participate in as well. You can also get downloads of our routes and exclusive photos. So please join us, Ko-Fi/Venture Playlist. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.